Your Honor, I object to this entire proceeding. My father's innocent, and I can prove it. Imagine a 14-year-old girl rising in a courtroom, declaring herself her father's defender. Would you laugh like the crowd did? What unfolded left even the judge stunned. When Hannah Carter saw her maintenance worker father accused of theft by the very law office he'd loyally cleaned for 2 decades, she made a move no one expected. This determined teen was about to expose corruption stretching far beyond her father's case, right into the judge's own household. Dear listener, if you're watching my story for the first time, kindly type where you are tuning in from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss the daily tales I bring. Now, let's step right into the full unfolding drama. The morning Jonathan Carter arrived at Preston and Hale attorneys felt routine. The 55-year-old janitor whistled quietly as he rolled his cart down gleaming corridors, a path he knew by heart. Brass plaques outside each office sparkled from his meticulous polishing. For 20 years, he had guarded their shine. "Morning, Mr. Carter," greeted Angela from reception, one of the rare employees who treated him like a human, not invisible furniture. "Morning, Angela. How's your little boy?" he replied warmly. "Growing too fast." Did Hannah finish that science project? Jonathan's face lit up. She sure did. A model of the justice system. He didn't mention that while he worked late, Hannah pored over legal books inside the firm's law library. At first, curiosity had drawn her. 3 years later, she could dissect case studies better than many first-year law students. Nobody noticed except her father, proud though slightly worried. The calm shattered when Robert Hale III stormed through the doors, rage twisting his features. "Where is he? Where's that thief?" Jonathan froze. "Mr. Hale, is something wrong?" Hale sneered. "The Kingsley merger files are missing. Millions at stake. Guess whose card accessed the records room last night?" Yours, Jonathan's heart pounded. "I was cleaning like always." "Check the cameras." Hale's voice dripped with disdain. "Conveniently, the footage malfunctioned during your shift. Police will hear this." Pulling out his phone, he barked into it. Within an hour, Jonathan was in handcuffs. Colleagues looked away, preferring assumptions over truth. Angela wept quietly, while senior attorneys avoided eye contact. None dared question the powerful Hale family. By afternoon, the news swept across the firm. The longtime janitor had betrayed them. The weight of silence crushed Jonathan harder than the cuffs. Loyalty had been repaid with suspicion and betrayal. At Eastwood Middle School, Hannah was presenting her science project when the principal entered. "Hannah Carter, please step out." Her teacher frowned. "She's mid-presentation." "It's urgent." Outside, the principal's face was grave. "Your aunt is here?" Hannah stiffened. She had no aunt. Something had happened to her dad. In the office, family friend Mrs. Porter waited, her eyes wet. "Sweetheart, your father needs you strong." Hannah's voice shook. "What happened? Is he hurt?" Mrs. Porter sighed. "They arrested him. Claimed he stole Hannah." Staggered back. Her dad, the man who returned every penny of extra change? Impossible. "The bail's 50,000, Mrs. Porter whispered. "We're trying to help." Hannah's jaw tightened. "Take me to him." "Hannah, jail isn't a place for—" "Take me." Now her tone, steady as steel, belonged to someone older. That night, Hannah pressed her palm against scratched plexiglass in the visiting room. Jonathan forced a smile. "Baby girl, I didn't do this." Hannah leaned forward. "I know. Tell me everything. Every detail. You don't need. I've read those law books 3 years, Dad. I know discovery, evidence, reasonable doubt. I know more than that public defender they gave you." Jonathan blinked, finally seeing his daughter as more than a child. "When did you grow up so fast?" "The moment they cuffed my hero," she whispered. "Now talk." He told her everything. The times, the access card, the malfunctioning cameras. She scribbled notes fiercely, preparing for a battle ahead. 3 days later, Hannah climbed the courthouse steps, wearing a too small dress and carrying a cardboard folder stuffed with notes. Inside, she took a seat, watching defendants shuffle past like nameless figures. The stench of routine injustice filled the chamber. Her father's hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. Case 4920, State versus Jonathan Carter, the bailiff called. Her father shuffled in, orange jumpsuit branding him guilty before words were spoken. His court-appointed lawyer, Mr. Denton, looked disinterested, scrolling his phone. Presiding was Judge Martha Hale, Robert Hale's aunt. Hannah had researched her family ties and biases. Judge Hale's voice boomed. Mr. Carter, charged with grand theft, unauthorized access, and corporate espionage. How do you plead? Denton barely glanced up. Not guilty. District Attorney Philip Grant strode confidently. Your Honor, evidence is overwhelming. Defendant's keycard accessed restricted files. Millions vanished. Footage conveniently corrupted. We request detention. Jonathan raised his voice. I've worked 20 years here. Where would I run? Silence unless addressed, Judge Hale snapped. Denton whispered something about pleading out. Grant continued theatrically. The Kingsley documents were highly sensitive. Only someone with access could take them. The only non-executive present that night was Carter. Because I was cleaning, Jonathan protested. Gavel cracked again. Control your client, Hale warned. Denton shrugged, texting again. Hannah's fury boiled. This wasn't justice. It was a railroad job. Grant smirked. We also discovered Mr. Carter's daughter used the law library unauthorized. Suspicious, don't you think? Hannah's stomach dropped. They were twisting her secret studies into evidence of conspiracy. Judge Hale leaned forward. Defense, anything to add? Denton sighed. My client is a hard-working man. No prior record that was his entire defense. Grant seized the moment. Motion to hold without bail. Judge Hale nodded slightly, preparing. That's ridiculous, Jonathan cried. Gavel cracked again. Grant pressed. Given the breach of trust, we request no bail. Hannah's fists clenched. Every word felt like quicksand, pulling her father under. Denton leaned back, disengaged. The entire system seemed united against a janitor whose only crime was loyalty. Objection! The word rang from the gallery, clear and strong. Silence fell as every head turned. Hannah stood, chin high, folder clutched like armor. Judge Hale's glare hardened. Sit down immediately. This is a courtroom, not a classroom. Hannah's voice cut back. I know exactly where I am, Your Honor. And I know Michigan Court Rule 2.117C, ineffective counsel justifies immediate intervention. The gallery buzzed. Denton's mouth dropped. Grant's smugness faltered. What's your name? Hale demanded. Hannah Carter. The defendant's daughter, Hale barked. Bailiff, remove this child. I'm 14, Your Honor. Under People versus Daniels, minors may address matters affecting custody. With my father facing prison, I absolutely have standing. Grant scoffed. Absurd! She's a child, Hannah fired back. This child counted 3 procedural violations in 10 minutes. Should I list them or let the appellate court handle it later? Jonathan stared, awed by his daughter's fearless stand. What are you doing, Hannah? He whispered across the courtroom. She met his eyes. What you taught me, Dad. Standing for what's right. Judge Hale gripped her gavel tight. You're in contempt. Hannah's tone sharpened. Actually, I'm in possession of evidence Denton ignored. Evidence proving this case is fabricated. She paused deliberately, locking eyes with the judge. Evidence pointing to conflicts of interest that reach surprisingly high. Phones lifted in the gallery, recording everything. What had been routine now turned extraordinary. Hannah steadied her breath, though her heart raced. I'm requesting to serve as co-counsel for my father. Laughter burst from Grant, spread to Denton, rippling through the room. Even a bailiff chuckled. Judge Hale did not. Her narrowed eyes studied the girl who stood unyielding. The legal citations rolled off her tongue without notes. Something about her confidence made Hale's stomach twist with an unsettling feeling. It might have been fear. The laughter grew louder, echoing in the old chamber. Hannah did not flinch. Her young face held determination. Suited for someone thrice her age, she was no longer invisible. Judge Hale raised her gavel high, prepared to demand silence through sheer authority if necessary. Enough! Wood slammed against wood. The laughter died instantly. The room bristled with electricity, tension coiling tight. Every eye fixed on the teenager who dared to challenge the system. In that moment, Hannah Carter was no longer just a janitor's daughter. She was a force nobody had anticipated. The judge's gaze lingered, her face hard, but her thoughts unsettled. What if this girl truly held something dangerous? Hannah kept her folder clutched tight. She had drawn the battle lines, and the courtroom could sense it. A storm had arrived, carried on the voice of a 14-year-old girl. Jonathan's chest swelled with a mix of terror and pride. For the first time since his arrest, hope flickered. The gallery whispered, phones still filming. Grant scowled, Denton slumped, but Hannah stood tall. The legal game had changed, and the powerful Hales felt the floor tremble beneath them. The echo of the gavel still hung in the air. Silence pressed heavy on every corner of the courtroom. Hannah Carter didn't blink. She had cracked the facade of a system designed to crush people like her father, and though the laughter had died, something far more dangerous had begun. Miss Carter, while your passion is commendable, this court does not indulge children playing lawyer. Bailiff Jensen, escort her back to the gallery. Your Honor, Hannah's voice rang out, I cite State v. Caldwell, where the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that denying chosen counsel, regardless of age, violates Sixth Amendment protections under exceptional circumstances. Jensen paused, hand hovering near Hannah's shoulder, uneasy. District Attorney Grant rose, face flushed. This is absurd, Your Honor. I motion for dismissal of this stunt and continuation of trial. Seconded, Denton added quickly, embarrassed at being upstaged by a teenager. But Hannah reached into her folder, pulling out a document. Before you decide, perhaps review this, she said evenly. A signed affidavit from my father, appointing me as his legal representative, witnessed and notarized. He has the constitutional right to choose his counsel. She's 15, Grant barked. Hannah's reply was calm. Mozart composed at 5. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein at 18. Ability isn't chained to age. Grant sputtered, but Hannah pressed on. Or haven't you read Peterson versus State Board? The judge's eyes flicked toward her clerk, who scrambled through law books. Each citation matched. Murmurs spread. The gallery, now half recording on phones, leaned forward as though watching history being made in real time. Grant's authority was cracking. Furthermore, Hannah said, stepping forward despite the bailiff's hesitation, this court carries a grave conflict of interest. Judge Hale, are you related to Robert Hale III, the complainant? The judge's face turned from crimson to pale. That is irrelevant. Hannah's voice cut sharp. Ethics Rule 2.11 requires recusal if impartiality is reasonably questioned. How dare you? The judge snapped. I dare, Hannah shot back, because my father's freedom hangs in the balance, because his court-appointed lawyer met him for 10 minutes and urged him to plead guilty, because justice isn't marble carvings, it's supposed to matter, and right now, it doesn't. The gallery gasped. Jonathan Carter's eyes filled with tears. Hannah, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Dad. For a heartbeat, she was a frightened 15-year-old. Then her spine straightened. You taught me law protects everyone equally. Time to test it. Her voice carried both fear and fire, igniting whispers across the courtroom. Grant tried again. Even if we indulge this fantasy, the girl has no training, no certification, no standing. I've studied law for 3 years, Hannah interrupted. While my father cleaned your offices, I read every book in Preston and Hale's library. I know Michigan criminal procedure, federal evidence rules, 300 precedents. The gallery chuckled nervously. Grant's reputation for relying on staff was no secret. Hannah's eyes gleamed. Would you like me to quiz you? Laughter rippled. Grant flushed. As for certification, Lincoln never went to law school. Neither did John Marshall, Clarence Darrow, or Justice Robert H. Jackson. The bar exam is modern, not constitutional. Judge Hale found her voice. This court has standards. Double standards, Hannah countered. When corporations hire billion-dollar firms, you don't ask for diplomas. But when a janitor's daughter dares to defend her father, suddenly credentials matter? She pulled out another paper. This is a motion for immediate disclosure of all evidence. I invoke Brady versus Maryland. I request access to the corrupted footage, key card logs, and witness statements. You can't, Grant began. I can, Hannah interrupted, unless you're hiding something. The prosecutor's face blanched. Judge Hale shifted uneasily. Hannah pressed harder. I also file motions for your recusal and dismissal based on prosecutorial misconduct. Grant snapped. What misconduct? Hannah smiled thinly. Failure to disclose exculpatory evidence. 3 other key cards accessed that room. The corrupted cameras cover only select angles, and my father's card was used in 2 different places simultaneously. Unless he cloned himself, the logs are tampered. Gasps spread. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Grant shouted objections. Denton fumbled papers. Judge Hale pounded her gavel furiously. Order! She bellowed. Order! She turned to Hannah, fury blazing. How do you know this? Hannah's answer was crisp. Because, unlike Denton, I investigated. I spoke with guards, staff, IT. I did the basic work any lawyer should have done. From her folder, she produced affidavits. 3 witnesses saw others in the building. Photos show cars parked after hours. Records prove administrator access tampered with the system. My father was framed, Grant muttered. Impossible. What's impossible, Hannah replied, is expecting justice when wealth outweighs truth. I refuse to accept that the gavel lowered. Judge Hale stared, something between respect and fear flickering in her eyes. And you gathered this evidence. How? Hannah stood tall. Legally, unlike those framing my father, I broke no laws. I only refused to accept that poverty equals powerlessness. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Jonathan's tears fell freely. The gallery was spellbound. Even the stenographer's fingers had frozen. Finally, Judge Hale spoke, voice measured. Miss Carter, while your dedication is noted, this court cannot simply permit a child to practice law. Hannah's eyes hardened. Then you leave me no choice. She pulled out her phone. Connecting to courtroom Wi-Fi, she announced, I'm streaming this live to my school's legal club, the State Bar's Ethics Committee, and 15 news outlets. Title, Judge Denies Defendant Right to Counsel Based on Age Discrimination. The viewer count surged past 8,000. Panic flickered across the prosecutor's face. Public opinion had entered. You can't, Grant shouted. Recording is illegal. Actually, Hannah said smoothly, Michigan Court Rule 8.109 permits electronic recording in service of justice. Considering my father's lawyer is playing Candy Crush, she nodded at Denton, who hastily pocketed his phone. This qualifies. Laughter erupted again. The judge's color drained to ashen gray. The live stream surged past 12,000. The judge was cornered. We will recess 30 minutes, she said weakly, fleeing chambers. The courtroom exploded in noise. Bailiffs hesitated. Hannah crossed to her father. Where'd you learn this? He whispered through tears. She smiled, exhausted. From you, Dad. You taught me not to give up. In chambers, Judge Hale stared at headlines, already exploding on social media. Hashtag Let Her Speak trended. Calls from her nephew Robert went unanswered. The Bar Association had issued a statement of concern. Her choices narrowed. Double down and risk public fury, or take an unprecedented step. The weight of history pressed. When court reconvened, the gallery was packed, cameras rolling. Outside, reporters clustered. Inside, all eyes fixed on the bench. Judge Hale took her seat slowly. Miss Carter, she began. The room hushed. This court is in uncharted waters. No statute bars minors from representation, but no precedent allows it either? Hannah's chin lifted. With respect, Your Honor, Brown versus Board had no precedent either. Justice begins somewhere. A murmur rippled. The live stream count hit 50,000. Hale pressed on. Given constitutional concerns, I will consider a compromise. You may present your case if you demonstrate competency. Think of it as an oral bar objection, Grant barked. Overruled, Hale snapped. Miss Carter, answer questions on procedure, evidence, and rights. Prove your knowledge. Hannah straightened. I accept, Grant sneered. Then let's begin. He leaned forward, Predator's grin returning. Explain the concept of mens rea and its 4 levels under the Model Penal Code. Without hesitation, Hannah answered, Mens rea, or guilty mind, refers to mental state for liability. 4 levels: purposely, conscious intent; knowingly, awareness of conduct; recklessly, disregard of substantial risk; negligently, failure to recognize substantial risk. None apply here, as prosecution failed to establish any mens rea for my father. Their charges collapse. Grant's smirk faltered. The gallery gasped again. Cameras captured every word. Even Judge Hale's stern mask slipped slightly. The 15-year-old girl had answered like a seasoned attorney, citing doctrine precisely. It was only the first question, but already the balance of power in the courtroom had shifted in ways unthinkable. Grant shuffled his papers, trying to regain control. The gallery's energy pulsed. The live stream ticker showed 70,000 viewers. Jonathan Carter, still in chains, watched his daughter with awe and terror. For the first time since his arrest, hope swelled. Hannah had thrown open the door to a fight worth winning. Judge Hale leaned forward, concealing her unease. Next question, Mr. Grant. But Grant hesitated, his confidence rattled. Hannah stood unwavering, her folder clutched tight like a shield forged from truth and courage. The courtroom knew this was no longer about one janitor's fate. It was about whether justice truly meant equality. Phones kept streaming. Social media feeds blazed. Across the state, thousands tuned in, debating the girl who challenged a corrupted system. In that chamber, Hannah Carter's voice had become larger than herself, symbol of defiance, of courage, of justice clawing through cracks in marble walls. And the trial had only begun. Grant finally found his voice. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Hale shot him a look. So is a teenager citing precedent more accurately than the prosecutor. The room laughed. Grant flushed. Hannah's eyes never wavered. Ask your next question, she said firmly. I'm ready. The courtroom leaned forward in anticipation. Grant's face twisted. He thought he could crush her. Instead, he looked cornered. Explain hearsay exceptions under federal rules of evidence, he demanded. Hannah smiled faintly, already preparing her response. The gallery held its breath. Phones streamed. Justice had never felt more alive, more contested, more fragile. The battle was just beginning. The clock ticked. The world leaned in. And for once, the fate of Jonathan Carter didn't rest in polished attorney's hands, but in the courage of his 15-year-old daughter. With steady breath, Hannah began her explanation, knowing each word carved deeper into history's pages, each syllable defying the system's chains. Hearsay, she said, is an out-of-court statement offered for truth, generally inadmissible, unless falling under exceptions: excited utterance, present sense impression, dying declaration, statement against interest, and records of regularly conducted activity, each grounded in reliability. She paused, locking eyes with Grant. But nothing in your evidence qualifies under those exceptions. What's the federal standard for admitting evidence? Grant asked. Hannah didn't blink. Rule 401, relevance. Anything that makes a consequential fact more or less probable. Rule 403, exclude if probative value is substantially outweighed by unfair prejudice, confusion, or misleading the jury. She let it hang, then added, "Your corrupted video fails both. It proves nothing and exists only to poison the well," she continued. The gallery leaned in. Someone whispered, "She's dismantling him." "Define the Brady Doctrine," Grant demanded, desperation threading his tone. Phones hovered like fireflies as the room waited. Even Bailiff Jensen's posture shifted, sensing the tide turn against the state. "Brady v. Maryland," Hannah said, steady as a metronome, "holds that suppressing evidence favorable to the accused violates due process when material to guilt or punishment. Prosecutors must affirmatively disclose exculpatory information. You breached Brady by hiding the multiple keycard entries I referenced," Judge Hale interjected. "My question, Miss Carter, elements of grand larceny in Michigan?" Hannah answered cleanly. "Under MCL 750.356, 1. Property of another; 2. Taking without consent; 3. Intent to permanently deprive; 4. Value exceeding $1,000. For breaking and entering under MCL 750.110, unlawful entry with intent to commit a felony or larceny." She paused. "None proven. My father had lawful access. Nothing recovered. Intent is speculative." "Explain chain of custody," the judge pressed. "Continuous documentation of evidence handling, collection through courtroom. Each transfer logged to prevent tampering or contamination," Hannah said. "Your corrupted files have no verified chain, no records of who touched them, when they were discovered damaged, or which administrators had system-level access during the relevant window." Denton finally stirred, stung by professional embarrassment. "What about double jeopardy?" Hannah turned, cool as glass. "Fifth Amendment prohibits a second prosecution for the same offense. Jeopardy attaches when the jury is sworn, or in bench trials, when the first witness is sworn. We're not there yet, Mr. Denton, though your 10-minute prep suggests you knew that." Laughter rippled. A few officers hid smiles. Judge Hale asked about Miranda, searches, and burdens of proof. Hannah answered flawlessly, citing case law, linking doctrine to facts, threading relevance like a needle. She mapped the state's shortcuts with the precision of a surgeon, every response tightening a noose around the prosecution's narrative. "This is classroom theory," Grant snapped. "She's never practiced." Hannah cut in. "By practice, do you mean public defenders advising innocent clients to plead guilty because it's faster? Prosecutors burying exculpatory material to pad conviction stats? Judges ignoring conflicts because bloodlines outrank ethics?" She gestured to the cameras. "I know the difference between civics books and reality." The room went silent. Jonathan Carter watched his daughter, stunned. When had the child he raised become this iron-willed advocate? "Miss Carter," the judge said, clearing her throat, "you've shown exceptional knowledge, but knowledge alone doesn't make counsel. Can you withstand the pressure of actual litigation?" Hannah's answer was simple. "Test me." The judge studied her, suspicion and respect wrestling in her eyes. The institution's past faced its future on a knife's edge. Finally, Hale spoke. "This court will permit Hannah Carter to serve as co-counsel for the defense. Mr. Denton remains counsel of record." The gallery erupted. Grant looked gut-punched. Denton looked relieved. "Understand," the judge continued over the swell of noise, "you'll be held to attorney standards. Breach procedure or disrespect the court, and you're removed immediately." "Understood perfectly," Hannah said. "Proceed with the preliminary hearing," Hale ordered. "Mr. Grant, your first witness." Grant scrambled. Hannah opened her folder, tabs, notes, exhibits aligned like chess pieces. She'd unknowingly trained 3 years for this. Every late shift, every borrowed volume from Preston and Hale's library, every small injustice stored like tinder. "Baby girl," Jonathan whispered, voice breaking with pride and dread. Hannah squeezed his hand once and let go. "We're already making history," she murmured. "Now let's finish the job." Grant called the night security supervisor. As Bradley Hutchins approached, Hannah clocked his darting eyes toward the back, where Robert Hale the third had just slipped in, jaw set, fury humming beneath expensive polish. The real fight had arrived. Grant steadied himself at the lectern. State your name and occupation for the record. Bradley Hutchins, night security supervisor at Preston and Hale, he said. Tell us about October 15th, Grant prompted. I was monitoring feeds when irregular keycard activity hit the secure record suite. Jonathan Carter's card accessed restricted zones multiple times between 11 and 2. He was unauthorized there. Correct. Janitorial staff aren't permitted in secure rooms. Hannah's pen moved briskly. Something in the cadence of Hutchins's answers snagged her attention. A seam waiting to split. What did you do upon noticing? Grant asked. I tried to pull video, but the files were corrupted. System flagged multiple failures. Grant turned, playing the moment for the crowd. Convenient for the defendant. No further questions. Miss Carter, your witness, the judge said. Hannah rose, composure carved from granite. Mr. Hutchins, you said you started at 11 and noticed the irregularities shortly after. What time did your shift begin exactly? 11. Interesting, Hannah said, producing a document. The log shows you clocked in at 11:47. Were you mistaken or dishonest? Hutchins shifted. Approximately gets innocent people locked up, Hannah cut in. You were 47 minutes late. Where were you? Car trouble. Did you report that to a supervisor? No, I handled it. Hannah's gaze sharpened. Like other things you handle, who holds administrator access to the card system? Senior partners, IT heads, security supervisors, he said. Security supervisors like you, Hannah confirmed. Objection, Grant snapped. Relevance. It goes to alternate access and tampering, she replied. Overruled, the judge said. Hannah leaned closer. So you could alter logs? I would never. I didn't ask if you would. Can you? A beat. Technically, yes. Hannah lifted another sheet. Explain why my father's card pinged the third floor secure room at 11:33 p.m. and simultaneously registered in the basement storage corridor. Hutchins paled. System error. A very helpful error, framing a janitor, Hannah said smoothly. How many errors occurred that night? I I don't know. Your security chief not knowing is negligence. Let's discuss the video corruption, she continued. Which cameras failed? Those covering the secure filing area. Only those? Not lobby, not garage, just the secure suite. Hannah's eyebrow arched. In a building with 47 cameras, the 5 aimed at the one place we needed conveniently died. That's not a malfunction. It's a curation argumentative, Grant objected. Withdrawn, Hannah said, already wheeling a small cart forward. Your Honor, Defense Exhibit A. Objection, we've not reviewed. It's footage from the Meridian Bank across the street, Hannah said. Publicly accessible, time-stamped, directly relevant. The judge considered, then nodded. Admitted. The screen flickered on. The room collectively leaned forward. Mr. Hutchins, Hannah said. Identify the person entering Preston and Hale's employee entrance at 11:28 p.m. The grain was tolerable, the angles forgiving. That appears to be me, he mumbled. 19 minutes before you claim to have clocked in, Hannah noted. And the man walking in beside you, care to identify him? Hutchins' hands whitened around the rail. I don't know. You don't? Hannah zoomed. That's Robert Hale the third, isn't it? The complainant. The gallery detonated. Shouts, cameras, a gust of scandal. Robert surged down the aisle, sputtering denials. Order, Judge Hale thundered, gavel cracking. Mr. Hale, sit or be removed. Mr. Hutchins, Hannah resumed after the noise ebbed. Why did Robert Hale enter with you at 11:28 when he told police he wasn't present that night? We just arrived at the same time, Hutchins stammered. Coincidence, Hannah echoed flatly. She lifted a printed statement. His sworn report says he left at 6 and never returned until morning. So which is false, his statement or your testimony? Grant sprang up. Speculation. It's evidence you ignored, Hannah countered. Evidence you could have discovered with basic diligence. She advanced a step. Mr. Hutchins, did Robert Hale ask you to alter keycard logs to frame my father? No, he blurted too fast. Absolutely not. Then explain this, Hannah said, pulling a final document. Bank records showing a $10,000 deposit to your account on October 16th. A hush fell. Hutchins swallowed audibly. That was a loan from my brother. Hannah tilted her head. Your brother in Seattle? The one unemployed for 2 years? Curious lender. Public records, Mr. Hutchins, she added, voice cool. Amazing what diligence uncovers. Unlike the state's investigation, Grant objected again, flailing. Prejudicial. It goes directly to bias, motive, and credibility, Hannah said. The judge eyed Hutchins, then Grant. Overruled. Answer the question about the funds, Mr. Hutchins. The witness's silence spread like a stain. Hannah pivoted to the screen. Note the timestamp overlay, 232804. Cross-reference with entry logs from card ID ending -7132, Mr. Hale's executive credential, granted garage access at 232651. She set down the printouts. Your corrupted cameras missed it. Meridian Bank did not. The gallery hummed, scenting blood in rising electric air. She faced the jury box, then the bench. We have selective camera failure, impossible simultaneous card reads, a witness late to work arriving with the complainant, and unexplained cash flowing to that witness the next morning. She held Grant's gaze. That's not coincidence. That's orchestration dressed as evidence. Jensen's shoulders squared as if bracing. Robert Hale glared daggers, knuckles bone white. Jonathan stared at his daughter, a mix of awe and terror carving deep lines. Denton sat very still, as if motion might collapse the fragile advantage. Phone streamed. Hashtags multiplied. The judge's expression hardened into something grimly thoughtful. The institution felt its foundations shiver. Grant attempted a recovery, voice brittle. This is smoke and mirrors. The defense spins fantasy Hannah didn't let him breathe. Fantasy is 5 cameras dying in the same corridor while lobby and garage purr along. Fantasy is a janitor teleporting between floors. Fantasy is cash appearing right after evidence materializes. Let's return to fundamentals, she said softer. Burden of proof rests with the state, beyond a reasonable doubt. They can't even clear the threshold of probable cause without doctored logs and selective blindness. Her gaze swept the room. This system promises fairness. Prove it keeps that promise? Even the stenographer resumed, hands shaking. Hannah lifted the deposit record again. So I'll ask plainly, mister. Hutchins, where did the 10,000 come from? The witness stared at the exhibit, then at Robert Hale, then down. The silence swelled, heavy and damning. Around them, the air vibrated, like a storm crouched just beyond the courthouse doors. Mr. Grant, I did my homework, Hannah said, pivoting to the bench. Your Honor, move to designate this witness hostile and issue subpoenas for his banking records and phone metadata. Judge Hale's expression tightened. Nothing was unfolding as expected. Fishing expedition? Grant scoffed. A teenager playing detective. The gallery bristled. This teenager, Hannah replied, voice like tempered steel, has unearthed more in 3 days than your entire investigation. That's incompetence or complicity. Which is it? Grant reddened. How dare you? The veneer slipped. Hannah's anger flashed. You were ready to cage my father on doctored logs and phantom footage because he was convenient. You didn't investigate because you didn't care, she continued, turning back to Hutchins. One more question. Who else was inside that night? He swallowed. Just the cleaning crew. Names, Jonathan Carter, Elena Morales, and David Tran. Hannah raised a page. Interesting. Here's the assignment sheet. Morales called out sick. Tran was on vacation. Only my father was rostered. So who were you really letting in? She pressed. Hutchins' composure shattered. I want a lawyer. The room detonated. Shouts, cameras, a wave of realization. Bailiffs restrained Robert Hale as he surged forward. Judge Hale looked 10 years older in 10 minutes, gavel hammering for order. Neither wood nor title could command any more. Hannah faced the spectators and every streaming phone. This is how justice treats the poor. Fabricated evidence, perjured witnesses, prosecutors who never ask because they've already decided. She looked at the bench. My father has scrubbed your halls 20 years. His only crime was being easy to frame. We moved to dismiss and investigate misconduct. The judge's voice thinned. 1 hour recess. As the chamber emptied, adrenaline drained from Hannah's legs. She reached the defense table just as her knees gave. Jonathan caught her, tears hot on his cheeks. You're extraordinary. I'm terrified, she whispered. I know, he said, but nothing's braver than standing anyway. Your mom would be proud outside, camera crews swarmed. Hashtag Hannah Carter for justice streaked across feeds. Commentators called it the most astonishing courtroom performance they'd seen. Hannah wasn't finished. Cross had exposed the cracks. Now she'd split the foundation. She inhaled steadily, feeling the fear, gripping the purpose harder. The truth was bigger than her shaking hands. During recess, the courthouse buzzed like a switchboard. Reporters pounced on anyone exiting. On television, analysts looped the bank's exterior footage Hannah found. In a quiet alcove, she shared a vending machine sandwich with her dad. Whatever happens, Jonathan began, save it for after we win, she said, squeezing his hand. We're not done. Grant approached, swagger gone, eyes tight. Listen, kid, Miss Carter, maybe we can discuss a plea. Reduced charges, time served. No deals, Hannah said, granite calm. You tried to bury my father. Now I'll bury your case, he sneered, grasping for balance. You got lucky with Hutchins. Hannah's laugh held no joy. Luck favors preparation. I have sworn statements from 3 custodians that Robert Hale pressured staff to spy on competitors, she said. Emails between Hale and Hutchins planning the October operation. 6 similar frame-ups in 5 years, each targeting employees who refused corporate espionage. Grant blanched. How? While you pre-wrote your victory speech, I did the work. Lawyers are supposed to. When court reconvened, the judge looked hollowed out by a family name, a nephew's rot, and a crumbling case. Miss Carter, she said, your cross raised significant doubts, but the people retain the right to present their case. Hannah rose. Your Honor, the defense calls a witness. This is still the people's case in chief, Grant protested. MCR 6.201B3 permits calling out of order when circumstances warrant, Hannah said. The state's key witness just invoked the 5th. Circumstances warrant a long exhale from the bench. Whom do you call? Elena Morales, Grant frowned. She's not on any list. Because you never interviewed her, Hannah said, despite her badge access. A petite 50-something Latina woman entered, nervous but resolute, and took the oath. Mrs. Morales, Hannah began gently. How long at Preston and Hale? 15 years. You know my father? Jonathan's a good man. You were scheduled October 15th, but called out. Were you sick? Elena glanced at Robert Hale, then down. No. Why call out? I was told to. The gallery stirred. Objection! Hearsay! Grant barked. Party opponent agent, Hannah answered. Rule 801 D2D. The judge nodded. Overruled. Who told you? Mister? Robert Hale? The chamber erupted. Robert leapt up. Slander! Sit down, Robert, the judge ordered coldly. He sat, cheeks burning. Did he say why? Hannah asked. He said special cleaning, confidential, only certain people permitted, Elena replied. But Jonathan was still scheduled. That confused me. Did you warn him? I tried. Mr. Hale said if I called Jonathan, I'd be fired and reported. Are you undocumented? No. Citizen 10 years, but my family's papers are pending. He knows people. What happened after? Mr. Hale came to my apartment, gave me 5,000 in cash, Elena said, pulling an envelope from her purse. Said it was a loyalty bonus for keeping quiet. I kept it as proof. Hannah held the envelope up. Defense Exhibit B. The judge nodded to mark it. Anything else? Hannah asked. Elena's voice strengthened. I'm not the first. He does this to those he thinks can't fight back. Maintenance, mailroom, reception. Mostly minorities. People he thinks don't matter. Objection, prejudicial, beyond scope, Grant snapped. Pattern and motive, Hannah said. Overruled, the judge replied, voice heavy as stone. Hannah returned with a thick folder. Mrs. Morales provided records of 7 other incidents, employees framed, fired, or pushed out for refusing espionage or hiding executive misconduct. She spread spreadsheets, payment memos, house cleaning emails. Finally, she lifted a printout from Robert Hale to Bradley Hutchins, October 14th. Tomorrow night, ensure Carter's card shows max access. This must stick. Robert lurched up. Privileged communications attorney-client. Hannah didn't blink. You're an executive vice president, Mr. Hale, not counsel. And nothing here is legal advice. It's a paper trail for a conspiracy. She turned to the bench. One more witness, Your Honor. Who? The judge asked. Robert Hale III. The judge's eyes hardened. Robert, take the stand. I refuse. This is a circus driven by a child. Take the stand, she repeated, or be held in contempt. He moved forward, polished shoes suddenly too loud. The oath sounded thin in the charged air. Do you swear? I do, he snapped. Let's discuss the Kingsley files, Hannah began. You claim they were stolen October 15th. Describe them confidential merger documents worth millions, he said. Hannah lifted a memo. Kingsley Industries canceled the merger October 10th. There were no valuable documents left to steal color, drained from Robert's face as the gallery murmured. So, what were you really doing that night? Hannah asked. Why frame my father for taking worthless files? I don't have to answer, he said. You do, Hannah replied, unless you'll invoke the fifth like your security supervisor. Robert's eyes darted to his aunt. The judge's stare held nothing but weary disgust. The truth, Mr. Hale, she said. Silence throbbed. Why Jonathan Carter? Why that night? Robert cracked, like Hutchins before him. He saw something, he muttered. Louder, Hannah said. He saw something. He raised his voice, trembling. 3 weeks earlier, he was cleaning my office while I shredded records, evidence of skimming client accounts. He didn't confront me, Robert continued, sweating, but I knew he saw. I knew eventually. So you decided to preempt him, Hannah finished. Smear the whistleblower before the whistle. He licked his lips. I want my lawyer. I'm sure you do, Hannah said, turning back to the bench. The defense rests. A cathedral hush fell. Jonathan's tears were no longer grief, but relief, vindication burning through restraint. His daughter, his 15-year-old, had just turned a courtroom into daylight. In that brightness, molds died quickly. The judge inhaled as if surfacing. Mr. Marlier Grant, she said carefully, does the state wish to proceed? Grant took in the wreckage. Hutchins buckled. Robert self-incriminated. Documents stapled to a timeline like nails. He looked at Hannah, at Jonathan, at the judge measuring him. He exhaled defeat. The attorney who'd expected a layup now stood in a gym with no rim, no ball, and everyone watching. The people, he said hoarsely, moved to dismiss all charges against Jonathan Carter. A ripple surged the gallery. The judge nodded once, solemn. So ordered. The gavel's report rang like a bell announcing a new hour. Mr. Carter, you are free to go, she added, voice steadying into authority again. Court officers, the judge continued, place Mr. Robert Hale III and Mr. Bradley Hutchins under arrest. Chaos bloomed. Bailiffs moving, cameras flaring, murmurs cresting into shouts. Hannah felt the strength slip from her knees again, the storm's eye finally passing, exhaustion washing in. Around her, the world kept roaring. Jonathan reached for his daughter, pulling her into a fierce embrace. The courtroom's cold wood and brass blurred. You did it, he whispered, voice breaking. We did it, she corrected softly. Across the aisle, Denton sat stunned, recalculating a career in real time. The marble walls seemed less permanent than courage. Reporters funneled toward the doors. Hashtags multiplied. Somewhere a siren howled. Hannah steadied herself, breathing through the tremble. Justice still had miles to go, appeals, investigations, reforms, but today it had taken a step toward its promise. She lifted her chin, eyes bright with unshed tears. Let's go home, Dad. Grant stared at his ruined file, then at the teenager who had outworked, out-argued, and outlasted an entire machine. He closed the folder slowly, as if admitting something to himself. On the record, the dismissal stood. Off the record, a reckoning had begun, and it bore the name Hannah Carter. David had toppled Goliath with nothing but grit and truth. Jonathan swept Hannah into his arms. Both were crying now. How did you know, kiddo, about the shredding? She smiled through tears. I didn't, but you taught me to clean everything, wastebaskets included. People like him always hide evidence there. I guessed a man like that would leave crumbs, she added softly. Sometimes the strongest proof sits in the trash. Reporters swarmed around them, microphones lifted. Commentators were already calling it the most astonishing defense in Michigan memory. For Hannah and Jonathan Carter, though, it was simple. Justice. Hard won. Overdue. Necessary. They had beaten a broken system, and the moment would not fade. As officers cuffed Robert Hale, Hannah found herself hemmed in by cameras and questions. She raised a hand. The din stilled. I'll answer, she said, voice steady, despite the tremor of fatigue. But first, there's something I need to say. Lenses tightened on the 15-year-old in a too-snug dress, clutching the battered folder that had unmuzzled the powerful. None of this should have been necessary, she said. My dad worked 20 years with integrity. It took his teenage daughter to prove his innocence. She met the nearest camera. How many others sit forgotten? The motto says justice for all. We know it isn't. Justice costs money. If you can't pay, you don't always get it. That must change. A reporter called, Miss Carter, how did you learn so much law? Hannah's smile was sad. When you're poor, knowledge is the only weapon you can afford. That evening, in a borrowed conference room, Hannah shared the fuller story with a handful of journalists, with her father's blessing. Steam curled from the hot chocolate someone brought. It started 3 years ago, she said. Dad got permission for me to wait in the firm's library while he worked late. I was supposed to do homework, she added, throwing Jonathan a playful look. But have you ever stood in a law library? Shelves of rules, rights, and consequences. I started reading criminal law, procedure, constitutional protections. The more I read, the more I understood why our neighborhood looked the way it did, why some people get second chances and others don't. A journalist asked, why keep it secret? Hannah shrugged. Who takes a 10-year-old seriously? I told myself I was preparing. Maybe law school someday. I never thought I'd need it to save my dad. Her voice thinned. She steadied herself, breathing slow. Jonathan squeezed her shoulder. Tell them about the notebook. Hannah drew out a taped-up composition book. I wrote down everything. Citations, rules, procedures. 3 years distilled into these pages, she thumbed through tight handwriting. When Dad was arrested, I knew the public defender couldn't build a real case in time. So I built one. A reporter asked about the bank footage. Casebooks preach thinking laterally, Hannah said. I mapped every building facing Preston and Hale. Meridian Bank streams exterior cameras as a safety feature. I combed hours of video until the truth walked into frame. Another asked, and the financials? Emails? People who think they're untouchable get sloppy, she said, expression hardening. Emails had surfaced in a wrongful termination suit, public filings if you know where to dig. As for the money trails, let's just say some folks should use stronger passwords than birthdays. You hacked? I used public information, she replied evenly. Everything I accessed was lawful. That's the twist. They broke rules to frame my father. I followed rules to expose them. A veteran correspondent leaned in. What you did today. Veteran litigators don't always do it that cleanly. How'd you stay composed? For the first time, Hannah looked her age. I wasn't composed, she admitted. I was terrified the entire time. She glanced at Jonathan. But he taught me courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing what's right despite it. What's next? Someone asked. School Monday? I've got a history test, Hannah said, and laughter loosened the room's tight air. Seriously, the reporter persisted, every law school in America will recruit you. Hannah glanced at her father. Today taught me the law isn't just books and courtrooms, it's people. It's making sure what happened to my dad doesn't happen again. I'll probably be a lawyer, just not the tower kind, the kind who works for families like ours. As the interview wound down, Judge Martha Hale appeared in the doorway. The reporters stilled, scenting another headline. May I speak with Miss Carter? The judge asked quietly. Alone. Hannah looked to Jonathan. He nodded. The room drained until only two remained. I owe you and your father an apology, the judge began. I let family ties cloud my judgment. I should have recused immediately, yes, Hannah said bluntly. The judge's mouth flickered into a rueful smile. You don't pull punches? Punches are a rich person's luxury, Your Honor, Hannah answered. We use truth. No, I suppose you're right, the judge said, sitting opposite. I've been on the bench 25 years, seen thousands of cases and hundreds of attorneys. I've never seen what you did, Miss Carter. I did what I had to. No, the judge said softly. You did what was right. That's rarer. Most people accept a deal, bury the pain, survive. You fought. She pulled a card from her pocket. When you're ready after high school, college, call me. I'll help you get into the best law school in the country. Full scholarship. Hannah took it carefully, as if it might melt in her palm. Why? She asked. Because the law needs more voices like yours. People who remember justice isn't winning. It's truth. The judge rose, then paused. Your father raised an extraordinary young woman. Make sure he knows, Hannah said, throat tight. But I'll tell him again. She stepped into the hallway's fluorescent hush. Jonathan stood waiting. He opened his arms, and she folded in, finally allowed to be 15, small, shaking safe. I'm exhausted, she murmured. I know, he said. Let's go home. They slipped past cameras, down stone steps, into night air buzzing with sirens and headlines. A promise hung there, fragile and bright. At the curb, she looked back at the courthouse. The carved scales over the entrance no longer seemed decoration but vow. She'd helped keep it today. Dad, she said as the bus sighed to a stop, remember when you told me I could be anything? Of course. I think I know now. Jonathan smiled, pulling her close as they boarded. You already are, Hannah. You already are. 3 years of secret study, 15 years of life, one day in court. Everything had shifted. But for Hannah Carter, the fight wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, a direction more than a destination. Morning came. Jonathan woke in his own bed for the first time in a week, blinking at familiar light. For a blissful second, he forgot bars, shackles, glares. Then he heard humming in the kitchen, Hannah making breakfast, and memory rushed back. His 15-year-old daughter had pulled him from the undertow. Morning, Dad, she said, perched on the step stool she'd used since grade school, scrambling eggs with focused efficiency. Coffee's on. He watched her move with the same steady precision she'd shown in court. Shouldn't I be cooking for you? You've done it for 15 years, she said. I can handle one morning. They ate in companionable quiet until a knock rattled the door. Jonathan froze. A week ago, that sound meant cuffs and cold steel. Hannah checked the peephole. It's Miss Patel and some neighbors, she said, opening wide. Her homeroom teacher stepped in, followed by half the building, Mr. Alvarez, Pastor Green, Miss Parker. We saw the news, Miss Patel said simply. We had to come. The apartment bloomed into a celebration. Plastic cups, paper plates, casseroles, laughter that sounded like relief. Stories spilled. The leaky sink Jonathan fixed. Grocery bags he'd carried up 4 flights. Birthdays he never forgot. The room felt stitched together again. We always knew you were innocent, Mr. Alvarez said firmly. 20 years you come to my store, never shorted a penny. Miss Washington ruffled Hannah's hair. We knew she was special, but what she did. Hannah flushed, uneasy. She hadn't hunted glory. She'd hunted fairness. The door opened once more. Silence fell. Angela, from Preston and Hale, stood there, wringing her hands. I shouldn't be here, she blurted, but I need to say this. She turned to Jonathan. We knew. Secretaries, maintenance, mailroom, everyone Robert Hale stepped on. We were scared. Jobs are scarce. Her voice shrank. That's not an excuse. It's just true, I understand, Jonathan said softly. No, Angela insisted, drawing out an envelope. We took a collection, support staff only. It's not much, but it's for legal costs or whatever you need. He opened it, his eyes widened. Angela, I can't. You can, she said. And there's more. The unaffected partners met. They're offering you a new role, facilities services manager. Not janitorial. Triple salary. Congratulations swelled. But Hannah watched her father's face. She knew that look, a bruise beneath skin. I need time, he said quietly after the room cooled. I cleaned those floors 20 years. They tossed me like trash. How do I walk back? Then don't, Hannah said gently, after the neighbors left and quiet settled. They sat together on the worn couch, the envelope between them like a small, warm sun. We'll figure something else out. You're free now. Free to say no. Free to choose. Jonathan stared at his hands, then at her. You're right, he said, voice steadying. Freedom isn't just walking out of a cell. It's deciding where you go next. He smiled. A real one this time. Where do we go, Hannah? She leaned her head on his shoulder. Anywhere we want, Dad, she whispered. Anywhere that isn't afraid of the truth. Not just free from jail, free from them, Hannah said softly. From believing that job measured your worth. Jonathan exhaled. Bills still need paying, kiddo. We'll figure it out. We always do. The phone rang. Hannah answered, listened, then handed it over. It's CNN. They want us on tonight. Within days, their tiny apartment morphed into a buzzing command center. Morning crews, evening anchors, podcasters, producers. Everyone wanted the story. Talk shows dangled flights and hotel suites. Publishers whispered book advances. Civil rights groups offered podiums. Then came the most important call of all, the Michigan Attorney General's office. Mr. Carter, Miss Carter, the AG said over speaker, we've opened a comprehensive probe into Preston and Hale. What your daughter exposed appears to be the surface of something deeper. Oh, we're already seeing patterns, discrimination, embezzlement, coordinated fraud, years in the making. Hannah leaned toward the phone. What do you need from us? Your sworn statements first, the AG replied. But, Miss Carter, there's more. We run a youth justice internship. It's usually reserved for seniors, but in light of your work, we'd be honored to place you. You'd assist on wrongful convictions and civil rights cases. Hannah's eyes went bright. Seriously? 2 afternoons a week during the semester, full days over summer, the AG continued. It's demanding. I suspect you can handle it. Hannah didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely, yes. When the call ended, Jonathan studied his daughter's face, lit with purpose. Vindication wasn't just freedom, it was a door opening, finally. That night, they watched coverage of Robert Hale's bail hearing denied, and the unraveling scandal devouring Preston and Hale. Hannah tucked herself against Jonathan's shoulder. I'm proud of you, Dad. I'm proud of you, he said. You dismantled a machine and dragged me out from under it. She shook her head gently. You taught me how to fight right, she said. Every time you went to work with dignity, every time you respected people who didn't earn it, every time you said I could be anything, you were training me. Jonathan kissed her hair. Your mom would have been over the moon. Tell me about her? Hannah asked, a question she saved for nights when steadiness mattered. Jonathan told the familiar story again. Night classes, falling in love between shifts, the diagnosis, the promise he made as she held their newborn, give Hannah the opportunities they never had, no matter how hard. I kept that promise, he murmured, though I never imagined it would bring us here. Hannah smiled. She knew, she said. Somewhere she knew. They watched the city's lightscape through the thin glass. Tomorrow would be crowded. Testimony, interviews, choices, school. Tonight they were just a father and his daughter. Hey, Dad, Hannah said sleepily. Yeah, we make a pretty good team. Jonathan smiled into the dimness. Best I've ever seen. Outside, injustice sprawled in concrete and neon. Inside, hope felt tangible, like something you could hold. The system had flexed. They hadn't broken. Courage filled the quiet. Justice, Hannah thought, isn't about titles. It's about preparation, nerve, and refusing to bow. They'd pushed back. The system shifted, and they were just getting started. 6 weeks later, she stood before a packed auditorium at the University of Michigan Law School. Students, professors, advocates, cameras, keynoting a conference on justice. Good morning, she began, voice steady, clear. 6 weeks ago, I was a kid finishing algebra in a law library while my dad cleaned office floors. Today I'm here because a system failed us, and I refuse to accept that failure. She paused, measuring the crowd's held breath, then continued. I shouldn't be here, not because I'm too young, but because what I did shouldn't have been necessary. In a just world, my father wouldn't be arrested on rigged logs. His attorney would investigate. The prosecutor would seek truth, not a tally mark. A hush deepened. Pens stopped scratching. Hannah traced the 3 years that led there, nights reading while mop water sloshed, discovering that justice often carried a price poor families couldn't pay, learning the law could shackle or set free depending on whose hands held it. She refused to flatten anything. She told it like it lived. People call me gifted, she said. I'm not. I'm a girl who had access to books and time to read them. How many kids could do the same if they had those two things? How many parents are incarcerated because their children never got the chance I did? In the front row, Jonathan wept quietly. Beside him, Judge Hale, contrite and unexpectedly constant, had mentored Hannah through the speech and her new advocacy. The trial's aftershocks rocked far beyond one firm. A statewide probe widened, calls for oversight climbed, donors asked how to fund real change, not speeches. Investigators found a web stretching across multiple firms, Hannah told them. 17 executives indicted. Preston and Hale dissolved. Ethical partners relocated under stricter guardrails. My dad turned down a management track there, chose instead to help launch the city's Wrongful Convictions Commission. The applause that followed felt earned, not reflexive. The AG gave me a chance, she said. In this internship, I've already helped on 3 exonerations. 3 human beings who might have died behind bars if someone hadn't looked twice. For every case we catch, how many slip through? She lifted a stack of letters. I read every single one. Each claims innocence. Each begs for belief. I'm 15. I still have algebra. The room laughed, relieved but invested. I'm not here collecting compliments, she added. I'm here to challenge you. Law students, attorneys, faculty, you have power. Use it for people the system tends to erase: custodians, clerks, caregivers. The internship had been clarifying. With prosecutors who prized truth, she saw the system work when people made it work. She watched a father walk free after 15 years, embraced by children raised on phone calls. She also saw pleas hammered out in hallways because poverty shortens options to inches. Last week I met Sandra Morales, she continued. 8 years in on a robbery she didn't commit. Her public defender spent 12 minutes on her case. 12 minutes to decide 8 years. We found uninterviewed alibi witnesses, untouched security footage, untested evidence. She has 3 kids. Time doesn't refund. We're working to free her, Hannah said. But 8 birthdays passed. No court order rewinds that she didn't rush the silence. She honored it. Then she spoke about tutoring that helped her keep grades up while case files piled, scholarships she hadn't asked for, and a book deal she'd declined. My story isn't finished, she said. I don't want to freeze it into print when we're still in motion. She closed with Jonathan's lesson. Dignity isn't title or income. It's how you treat people and how stubbornly you stand for what's right. We fought dirty lies with clean work. Now we serve justice with dignity. She met Jonathan's eyes. Dad, will you stand? He rose, awkward with attention. This is my hero, she said. Not because he's perfect, but because he believed in fairness, even when fairness wouldn't believe back. She widened her gaze. There are heroes everywhere. Secretaries, janitors, delivery drivers. Folks told they don't matter. They do. The standing ovation thundered on for minutes, students crying, professors reconsidering syllabi. The video would go viral before she finished her first homework problem that night, reframing what legal education meant to a lot of people who taught it. At the reception, deans pitched scholarships, organizations offered partnerships, publishers circled again. Hannah slipped through to the cluster to find Jonathan by the punch bowl, talking with the law school's night custodian about overtime and bus schedules. Head home? She asked. Whenever you're ready, he said, and that was enough. They walked to the bus stop. They still didn't own a car. Did I do okay? She asked, sounding suddenly 15 again. You change lives, Jonathan said, but you've been doing that a while. The bus sighed open. They rode in quiet relief. Purpose settled over them like a blanket. They'd taken the worst the system threw and turned it into direction. Hannah had algebra to finish. She remained a sophomore after all. Jonathan had commission files waiting on the chipped coffee table. The apartment was still cramped, furniture still thrifted. But they owned something money couldn't buy: proof. Proof that justice didn't belong solely to the powerful. They had each other, and a mission that stretched past their front door. Dad, Hannah said as they climbed the stairwell. Yeah? Sandra Morales' kids are visiting tomorrow? I told them their mom's coming home soon. Jonathan stopped, worry ghosting his face. Hannah, he warned gently, careful with hope. She nodded. I know, but I'm not guessing. I've seen the file. New DNA results, alibis finally taken, camera footage recovered. It's strong. He searched her eyes, then exhaled. Okay. She squeezed his hand. Sometimes the truth needs a stubborn friend with a flashlight. They reached their door. Inside waited dishes to wash, notes to study, forms to sign. Outside, headlines still spun. Hannah rested her head against the peeling paint for a heartbeat and smiled. Ready? Jonathan asked. Ready, she said. The latch clicked. Another ordinary night. Another extraordinary beginning. They stepped inside together. 2 people and a promise. The city still held its injustices. The system still needed mending. But in this small place, hope had won and decided to stay. Justice wasn't about age, wealth, or titles. It was grit, preparation, and the relentless belief that truth could prevail. Hannah, you can't promise that. The system, I can, and I did, she said, steady. We'll make it happen like we did for you. The proof exists, Dad. We just need to make people look. Jonathan saw the same resolve that carried her through court. Okay, he said, exhaling. What do you need from me? Be here when they visit. Show them false convictions don't define a life. Show them their mom can rebuild, like you. The following afternoon, three wary kids arrived. Raphael, 15, Sophia, 12, little Mateo, 7. 8 years of foster homes and broken promises had starved them of hope. Hannah sat cross-legged on the rug, eye level. Your mom didn't do this, she said simply, and I'm going to prove it. Raphael's voice came out older than him. Everyone says that. Lawyers, social workers, empty promises. I'm not everyone, Hannah replied. I know what it is to almost lose a parent to a lie. She laid out evidence, shift records, timeline gaps, affidavits, placing their mother miles away during the robbery. More than proof, she offered what they'd forgotten, a human being who genuinely cared. Mateo crawled into Jonathan's lap. Did you really go to jail? I did, Jonathan said gently. Were you scared? Every day, but belief kept me going. Someone who knew the truth would win. We believe Mom, Sophia whispered. Then she's stronger than you think, Hannah said, and meant it. Weeks blurred. Hannah balanced school, her AG internship, and the Morales case with relentless focus. She recruited law students she'd inspired, launched a viral campaign, and convinced a renowned civil rights lawyer to take the matter pro bono. Paper cuts and late nights piled up beside sharpened strategy. The morning Sandra Morales walked free, her children waited clutching flowers Hannah helped pick. That's when Hannah understood her calling fully. Not headlines, not firsts, reunion, restoration, a justice that heals instead of merely punishes. TV crews swarmed, but she kept the camera on the family's embrace. Later, Sandra found her backstage, tears falling. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else refused. That night, Hannah updated her wall. Letters from incarcerated people, reunion photos, clippings from cases she helped move. Each pin meant a life restarted, a wrong corrected, a family made whole again. Getting crowded up there, Jonathan said from the doorway. Good, Hannah answered. It means we're doing the work. She had changed in 6 weeks. The frightened girl in a tight dress, becoming a steady force. Xavier with media, politics, and procedure, yet still her father's daughter, stubborn about fairness. The Attorney General was already hinting at expanding her role, perhaps a statewide youth justice initiative with Hannah as its face. Law schools retooled seminars around her method, law plus empathy plus relentless digging. Professors taught her cases as proof that a single refusal to accept that's just how it is matters. Fame had a bill. Anonymous threats appeared. Some adults bristled at taking direction from a teenager. Certain classmates retreated, unsure how to hang out with someone who spent weekends in prisons instead of malls. Hannah met it all with her courtroom poise and joined drama club to keep life ordinary. She still rode the bus with Jonathan, still finished homework at the kitchen table while he cooked. Know the best part? She asked one night over takeout, files spread between grease-stained cartons. A year ago, success meant keeping that janitor job. Justice meant accepting scraps. We know better. Now Jonathan smiled. Now we know we deserve better. Everyone does, Hannah said. Everyone deserves what we have, truth, dignity, and the chance to fight back. The buzzer sounded. Another family in the lobby. Another file. Another plea. Another chance to show the system how to work when people choose courage. As Hannah went to the door, Jonathan watched with wonder and pride. Yes, she'd saved him, but she'd also taught him, and everyone watching, that heroes don't always carry badges. Sometimes they're 15-year-olds with library cards. Sometimes they're custodians who raise fighters. Sometimes they're neighbors who refuse powerlessness. The door opened to an elderly woman holding a worn folder, hope wrestling fear in her eyes. Are you Hannah Carter? They said you help people like us. I try, Hannah said, stepping aside. Come in. Tell me everything. And the work continued. One story, one file, one wrong at a time. Brick by brick, they built a better world from a narrow Detroit walk-up. No budget, no prestige. just truth, grit, and the conviction that delayed justice didn't have to be denied justice. The system had tried to grind them down. Instead, they became the pressure that reshaped it. The National Legal Aid Foundation's annual conference overflowed. Judges, defenders, students, everyone came to hear a 15-year-old whose name had become shorthand for reform. Backstage, Hannah adjusted her mic on a new dress bought with her first AG paycheck. Out front, Jonathan sat beaming in a modest suit. "Ready, kiddo," he mouthed. Hannah nodded, thinking of the day everything pivoted. 6 months had remade their lives. The director introduced the youngest ever recipient of the Champion of Justice Award. Applause surged like surf. Hannah waited it out, then stepped into the lights and let quiet settle. 6 months ago, she began, I stood in a courtroom and told a judge I'd represent my father. People laughed. Impossible, absurd. She smiled slightly. Today I've helped clear 17 names, not because I'm special, because impossible wasn't a fact. It was a dare. A photo flashed behind her. Images followed. Sandra reunited with her kids, a grandparent freed after 23 years, a nurse returning to her profession after false charges. Each was failed by our system, Hannah said. Each would still be hurting if someone hadn't looked harder. Thousands more, she warned, waited for that second look. Her tone sharpened. 6 months inside the machine taught her both promise and limits. I got a letter from a 10-year-old last week, she said, pulling out a crumpled note. His mother's been incarcerated 4 years. Please don't give up, he wrote. She swallowed. I told him I won't. But my promise is hollow without change. She outlined the youth justice program she helped design, legal literacy in under-resourced schools, pairing exonerees with at-risk youth, a statewide pro bono network reviewing suspect convictions. Slides appeared, checklists, timelines, intake forms, practical blueprints, not just applause lines. We've trained 47 teens in basic advocacies, she said, kids with family entangled in courts. Last month, a 16-year-old found the evidence that freed her uncle after 12 years. A 15-year-old documented misconduct in his brother's case. These aren't outliers. Empower people and justice gets traction. She mixed data with story. Families rebuilt, trajectories restored, hope rehydrated. But she refused sentimentality. Some say I'm too young to understand complexity, she said. I am idealistic. I believe the words carved over courthouse doors should mean something. That's not naive. It's the job description. I've watched innocent people plead because bail was a wall. I've seen evidence buried for win rates. I've held kids who know visiting rooms better than playgrounds. Complexity, she argued, doesn't equal permanence. Behind her, the viral courtroom photo appeared, a teenager in a tight dress facing down power. This picture spread because people love David versus Goliath, she said. But I wasn't alone. Everyone who shared the story, every lawyer who volunteered, every judge who chose truth over convenience, those were the stones. Giants fall when many hands throw. The room answered with a long, rising applause. When quiet returned, she said what mattered most. 6 months ago, Preston and Hale had 17 executives. Today, 16 are imprisoned. The 17th, Judge Hale, is here. Cameras found the judge, who nodded, having testified against her nephew and colleagues. Accountability, Hannah said, had cost her nearly everything but integrity. Change doesn't come solely from inside or outside, Hannah said. It comes when people everywhere stop treating injustice as weather. She listed the coalition: custodians teaching daughter's law, judges picking truth over comfort, prosecutors valuing accuracy, defenders seeing humans, not case numbers. A final image appeared on the screen, her kitchen table, now a study circle, 4 teens with case books, learning what she learned alone. This is my group, she said, children of the incarcerated. They're not studying for resumes. They're studying for survival, for hope, for the day they might need to stand and say, "Objection." She closed by returning to the beginning. The morning of the arrest, the plexiglass, The trembling decision to stand, the letters read by flashlight, algebra between affidavits. People ask how it felt to save my father, she said. I didn't save him. I proved he was worth saving. Everyone in prison deserves someone who believes that about them, she said. Every child at a visiting desk deserves a reason to hope. Every overlooked worker deserves a justice system that actually sees them. She looked at Jonathan. Society said a janitor was disposable. He raised a fighter. He now helps lead the commission preventing what almost happened to him. The ovation surged, sustained and shaking. Comments poured through the live stream. Commitments multiplied. Number sign justice means all began climbing trend charts before Hannah stepped off stage. At the reception, she drifted from donors back to where Jonathan stood listening. He was talking with a night custodian from the venue, a young woman in a navy shirt, twisting a lanyard. This is Aisha, Jonathan said softly. Her son was arrested, shoplifting charge. She says he's innocent. Hannah saw the familiar panic. Tell me everything, she said, opening a notes app. Hannah sat on the carpet in her dress, eye level, listening. Timelines, receipts, an ignored witness. People noticed the keynote speaker on the floor with a janitor, caring more about story than spotlight. Someone snapped a photo. By morning, it joined the courtroom image, bridge between podium and hallway. We'll help, Hannah promised when Aisha finished. I can't guarantee outcomes, but I can guarantee a fight. That's all I needed, Aisha whispered. Later, Hannah and Jonathan drove home in their used sedan. Nothing flashy. Finally theirs. Light smeared across the windshield, like a city breathing in relief. Proud of you, Jonathan said. Even though I'm not your little girl anymore, you'll always be my little girl and a justice brawler. He smiled. Your mom would have been impossible to live with, so proud. Hannah laughed, bright and aching. We changed things, Dad. We're changing them, he corrected. Present tense. Work's never done, she agreed. Good. That means we'll always have purpose. They pulled into a safer complex, still modest, but with space for case files and book stacks. Hannah's phone buzzed. More requests, more pleas. Tomorrow's full, she said, scrolling. Then we sleep now, Jonathan replied, already knowing they wouldn't. She'd be up late again. Letters, videos, lab reports. Somewhere a child was crying for a parent. Somewhere someone innocent was losing hope. Somewhere silence was winning because nobody spoke. Not tonight, she whispered to herself, opening another file. Not while I'm breathing. She pinned Aisha's name to the wall. At the doorway, she paused, looking back at the skyline. 6 months earlier, she'd been a scared kid doing the unthinkable. Now she was a rebuttal to defeat. The system had tried to break her family. Her family learned to bend the system back toward the promise on its walls, one case at a time, one policy at a time, one heart at a time. Justice for all has to mean all, she thought, or it's just carving in stone. 15, with her father beside her and an army growing, Hannah Carter decided Val wasn't poetry, it was logistics. She answered 3 more emails before brushing her teeth, then fell into bed with her notes nearby. The phone kept blinking. She flipped it face down. A city hummed beyond thin windows. Inside, courage recharged in the quiet, ready to pour again when the clock insisted. Morning brought a cafeteria breakfast and the first bus of the day. Jonathan reviewed commission intakes. Hannah highlighted a transcript. You good? He asked. Good enough, she said, grinning. They rode in companionable silence, 2 travelers staring down a tangle of rules and deciding to untie it anyway. At school, a classmate handed her a note. My cousin needs help. Hannah nodded, tucked it in her pocket, and took her seat. In civics, she underlined equal protection and wrote in the margin, Make this true. Bells rang. She headed to the AG's office on the bus. A paralegal slid over a file with a wary smile. Thought you'd want this. Hannah read the summary, felt anger curdle and harden into plan. Let's get to work, she said. Phones rang, printers chirped, a dozen small machines trying to sound like progress. Today, they would be right. Evening returned them to the table where it began. Steam over noodles, highlighters uncapped, the news murmuring in the background. You okay? Jonathan asked. Yeah, she said. It's a lot. He nodded. We do a lot one piece at a time. She smiled. Now, that part, at least, was simple. She sketched a plan for Aisha's son: witness outreach, subpoena list, discovery demands. Jonathan washed dishes, humming. The quiet between them was the good kind, the kind that holds shelter. Ready for tomorrow? He asked. Ready, she said, taping another index card to the board that used to be bare. Before bed, she texted Raphael, How are your siblings? Better, he replied. Sophia sleeps. Me too, sometimes. Tell your mom we said hi. Will. She put the phone down, stared at the ceiling, and breathed. Somewhere, a door would open tomorrow. She didn't know which. She planned anyway. She dreamed of courthouse hallways flooded with light, of kids doing homework in libraries that belonged to them, of judges who started recusing themselves without being asked, of prosecutors saying, We're dismissing. She woke already moving. Laughter and steel in her chest. Morning, Dad. Morning, world, Jonathan answered. Dear friend, if this moved you, remember, justice shouldn't hinge on wealth or connections. Hannah Carter proved one determined voice can crack corruption. Knowledge is leverage. Courage is oxygen. In every city, there are Jonathans who deserve dignity, and Hannah's ready to fight. Let's listen, believe, and make justice mean everyone. Make